Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. Ashoka University professor Ali Khan Mahmudabad has been arrested for his remarks on social media about India's Operation Sindoor against terror groups based in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. This action was taken on a complaint which was given by a BJP Yuva Morcha leader. And what the various news agencies have quoted that Ali Khan Mahmudabad has been arrested from Delhi, and this has been confirmed by the police. And in a statement, Ashoka University said that we've been made aware that Professor Ali Khan Mahmudabad has been taken into police custody earlier, and we are in the process of ascertaining details of the case. Now, this arrest comes days after the Haryana State Commission for Women took suo motu cognizance of his comments, and in a notice, the commission stated that his remarks undermined women officers in the Indian armed forces and fomented communal discord. And Ali Khan Mahmudabad, in his response to the summons, stated that social media posts on Operation Sindoor and the women officers involved were not misogynistic and that he was censored. And in fact, in a statement which was released on X, the professor stated, and I'm going to quote here, that the screenshots attached to the notice make it clear that my remarks have been completely misunderstood and that the commission has no jurisdiction whatsoever in the matter. The Women's Commission obviously has taken up this issue, and this matter went to the Supreme Court today, and he's in the judicial remand with the police right now, and the matter should come up in the Supreme Court tomorrow or day after. But what does Mahmudabad's arrest indicate? Is this clear censorship? Is it an attack on freedom of expression? Is it just a symptom of a larger problem that prevails in the country, or rather has been prevailing in the country for last 11 years? But coming as it does in sensitive times when there is a conflict-like situation in the country between India and Pakistan, should one write posts on things like Operation Sindoor? That is also another question which is plaguing everyone's mind. But this arrest has sent down a chilling effect on everyone, whether it is the journalists, activists, academicians, and what does one do? So these are the questions for which we'll try and find out answers. Joining me now this evening is a very special panel. Joining me is renowned historian Mridula Mukherjee of the Jawaharlal Nehru University and author. Thank you so much, Mridula ma'am, for joining. We have Professor Apurvan from the Delhi University, again an author, columnist. Thank you, sir, so much for joining. We have, I think, Apurvanand. Okay, there's some problem in his connection. I believe he will get connected. Yes, he's there. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Apurvanandji. And we also have Ajay Gudavarthi, who is the professor and author again from the Jawaharlal Nehru University. Thank you so much, Ajay, for joining. And we also have Pushpraj Deshpande, who's the author of the book called Bharat Jodo Yatra, and he also works closely with the India Alliance. Thank you so much, Pushpraj, for joining. And I'll begin with Mridula, ma'am. Ashoka University professor arrested. Ma'am, how do you really see this, and coming as it does in times of a conflict where people are saying that if anything you write on Operation Sindoor, and if it doesn't favor the government, then it is taken as something which is against the national interest? You also must have gone through Mahmudabad's post. Did you find anything which was so objectionable?
First of all, let's be very clear and not mix up two things. He did not comment on Operation Sindoor. Let's be very clear. He was not asking questions. I mean, that's a separate question, whether you should or should not, and I have my own views on that. But let's be very clear that he was not asking questions on Operation Sindoor. What was he saying? He made a comment on the presentation, which was made by the Foreign Secretary, Misri, along with two officials, one from the Navy, one from the Army, two women officials, and his comment was on what he called the optics of that. And what he said was that it was a good thing that, they included women and they included a Muslim woman, but he hoped and he wished that the reality outside that room was also reflective of what that message India was sending to the world. What was India sending the message to the world? That we are a secular country, we're a progressive country. We have women who work in the armed forces, and they are very accomplished women, and they are from diverse backgrounds. So there is this very accomplished young Muslim woman who's risen so high in the armed forces. So what did he say? He said the reality outside should also reflect that. And we all know the kind of pressures and attacks that Muslims generally have faced in India after Pahalgam. Before that, also, it intensified. We know what happened to Kashmiri students. So what is he saying? He is, in fact, saying that let the projection that the government wants to make, and he agrees with it, to the world about what kind of society we are, let that be the reality. Let us approximate more and more to that. So, firstly, he was not asking any difficult questions about the conflict. He was not asking whether it justified or not. He did not raise any of those issues. As I said, that's a separate question. Here, it is just that, any comments which you can, distort and say that it's questioning the patriotism or a comment on the armed forces or anything, this is absurd, absolutely. And I must say that I was thinking about whether during the colonial period, a professional, a professor, or anybody would face this kind of action for a comment of this kind. And I'm sorry, I could not come across any example. So, have we regressed? I mean, our whole freedom struggle was about civil liberties and democracy. Repeatedly our leaders said, Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, everybody. From beginning from, Gokhale to Tilak to everyone. Tilak fought for the freedom of the press. This was supposed to be the heart of our freedom, civil liberties, the right to question, you know. So I am appalled, actually, and it's a very retrograde step. It has many messages that they are sending. It's to intellectuals generally. It's to all those who have the courage to speak up and ask questions, even if they are not about the military conflict. You know, it's that kind of message which we have been getting for a long time now through various other means. But this arrest, I think, is really, as you said, it's a chilling act, and it's meant to intimidate. Also, I think it's a message, that they've picked on somebody from Ashoka University. I think it's a very clear cut message to the private universities. Don't you dare show any spine or independence. You know, we can get you. And they have targeted Ashoka earlier also. Ashoka is one of the best private universities. It's a liberal arts university primarily. They are now building on their sciences. And there are many progressive people who have got jobs over there. And it's a clear message that, this is not on. You remain under our thumb or we won't let you function. And I dare say that Ashoka hasn't come out very well. The administration, the faculties come out very well. They've stood in support. But there's absolutely no reason for the administration to succumb the way they have and said, yes, we'll cooperate in investigation. You need to stand up for your faculty. What kind of university are you?
Absolutely. No, there are, more than 1,000 people have signed up in support of Mahmudabad.
Yes,
But
we
you,
all have.
yes. So I'll come to Professor Apurvan. How do you really see this arrest? And of course, this atmosphere has been there for the last 11 years. But now, it seems it's become more and more intense, because now it's all about the national interest. It's about the integrity of India. And the most pathetic has been the statement from the State Women's Commission. I mean, what are they trying to say when they say that his grandfather or father was funding for Muslim League? They have connections with Pakistan. I mean, I really don't know. I just fail to understand the kind of connections they are digging up.
And of
Yes,
course, this is also patriarchy. His mother doesn't matter. Her lineage doesn't matter. that
Yes.
his maternal grandfather was a foreign secretary of India.
Yeah.
When Vajpayee was the prime minister, he could have been obviously privy to all the secrets possible of this country. That doesn't matter. All that you can dig up is, you know, a lineage which goes to his disadvantage. In any case, we are not responsible for what our grandfathers or fathers or ancestors did, and we can't be
Absolutely.
held responsible for that. Neither we can be lauded for it, nor can we be held responsible for it.
Right. Right. So I'll come to Professor Purvanand. Sir, I was talking to you about this statement coming in from the State Women's Commission. What would you really say to that? And I was listening to her soundbite very carefully, where she says that, oh, his family was funding Muslim League, and then towards the end of the statement, that short clip which is there, which is viral on the X, then it says Modi ji ki jai ho, Modi ji great hai, something like that. She says, and the bite ends there. Now, what does this mean? The State Women's Commission, are they trying to prove more loyal than the king? What are they trying to indicate by digging out, facts like these and trying to put Mahmudabad in a bad light? Yes, sir.
So we have been witnessing how these commissions have been behaving for the last 11 years and weaponizing of the role of these commissions against activists and intellectuals. We know how Child Right Commission has targeted Harsh Mandir and other organizations and criminalized their activities. And women's commissions in different states, especially BJP ruled states, have been behaving in the same manner. For example, you see a women's commissions targeting opposition leaders, intellectuals, National Women's Commission and State Women's Commission, and Haryana Women's Commission is also acting following the same pattern, I would say, because it's so absurd that you are trying to find logic in what she is arguing, and you don't. So you think that there's something wrong with you, because how can it be that a person who is sitting in a responsible position in Women's Commission can make such a bizarre comment about something which doesn't exist? Because as Mridulya ji was saying, that he not only didn't comment on Operation Sindoor, but he also didn't make any comment on these two women, that is Vyomika Singh and Sophia
Sophia
Qureshi.
Qureshi. Yeah.
He didn't make any comment on those. What he was saying, that it was laudable that this image was presented to the world, that, well, here is a Muslim woman officer and here is a Hindu woman officer sitting on the same table representing India. But he was sad that this doesn't translate into reality on the ground. Because what is the reality in India? The reality is that Muslims don't feel equal to Hindus, and they are not treated as equal to Hindus. And that's the reality, that's a fact. And he only wished that the optics that you were presenting were translated into reality. That was his wish. So how does it become a matter which concerns Women's Commission? One fails to understand. It doesn't come under her jurisdiction. But now we are forced to sit here and debate it. This is the most bizarre thing that is happening. Even Orwell and Kafka, everyone would fail to describe the reality that India has become, because Kafka is now an inadequate term to describe India, the way things are turned on their head. But I would also like to say that the message through this action is very clear. The message is that a Muslim, even if he or she belongs to the elite, they are not allowed to have their views. That is very clear. Because what Dr. Ali Khan said has been said by hundreds of people in last 3 weeks. Hundreds of people. But Ali Khan was targeted. Because, and the reason is, Ali Khan is Ali Khan. Ali Khan is a Muslim. And he belongs to the elite of Muslims. And the message is very clear that we will get you, even if you are one of the elites, even if you have studied in Cambridge, even if you are teaching in one of the most prestigious universities of India, you're not safe. And who can target you? A very small time functionary of BJP. And there are more ominous messages involved in this whole action, and we can discuss those, because we need to ask that how is it that somebody goes to police and says that a person A said this in my presence and X was also present. There were three people also present and I don't know them, and I was hurt by what he said. And the police takes it so seriously that it converts it into very serious charges.
Yeah.
And it invokes treason, sedition, enmity between groups, hurting religious sentiments of people. This is what the police does. I go to police with a complaint that I'm hurt by what this person has said, and the police then looks for sections, applies those sections, converts this complaint into an FIR. This is what police does. And what has been our experience with the police? You sit from the morning till evening to get a complaint registered, to get an FIR registered. It's so impossible in police stations. But see the promptness, and see the promptness of police, that it registers FIR at 8 in the evening, rushes to a different state, and lands at the house of Ali Khan at 7 in the morning, next morning, to arrest him. And it's a Sunday, we must remember. So they knew that Ali Khan won't get any reprieve on a Sunday because courts are closed. So there are many, many messages involved in this simple action, and we need to understand each one of them.
Absolutely, and you very well listed out that how police shows its promptness. But when one needs to get an FIR registered, you have to run days and days. There have been many examples like that. I'll come to you, Professor Ajay Gudavarti, as an academician and as an author. How do you really see? And there is a lot of support coming in from various quarters for Mahmudabad. But what is it that we need to speak out at this juncture? Because the government feels that, we make one arrest, people will keep quiet, the academicians will feel scared, journalists will not speak up, activists will stop being active. So what is it that we need to speak out and send out a message to the government at this point of time?
Yeah, Neelu, I think you have framed that question rightly. I think this is not an issue that concerns only academics. It is not an issue that is of any immediate. One has to see it in the larger context, that this is a concerted method that BJP, RSS are using against any dissenting voice, including the opposition. Look at the bizarre allegations that are being levied. Forget Mahmudabad. Look at the bizarre allegations being levied against the deputy leader of opposition, Mr. Gaurav Gogoi. They are saying he has ISI links. Mr. Hemanta Sharma said he went across border and got some 15 days training. I mean, serious security related issues you are trivializing and making it so frivolous that it's almost now reduced to a kind of an entertainment. That you have somebody in the opposition, you can leave any kind of allegation, you cook up a story that somebody went abroad, somebody crossed border. What are you talking about? He is a parliamentarian, he is visible in public life. How can he go and get ISI training? What is the evidence you have? The evidence, he says, like a typical Bollywood movie, he'll present in September 10th, some date, some muhurt he has taken. Until that September 10th has run up to the, because the elections are in October, November. So till October, till September, he will keep making this allegation. Something similar has happened with Bhima Koregaon. It's been 4 years since allegations, serious allegations have been charged against these activists. Trial has not started. I mean, what is that? Therefore, there is a complete breakdown of law, rule of law. It's a complete righteous lawlessness they are imposing. where they're driving in and trying to make it a common sense that if it is a Muslim, you have to suspect without evidence and without reason. Because nothing in what this Mr. Professor Mahmudabad said is objectionable. It's a very common sense statement he has made, that you have used projected Muslim women, you have given them honor, but you have not, some similar honor is not visible on the ground for Muslims because mob lynching. So what is objectionable in this? What is the dignity of women issue here? So the point is very simple, that you are now come to a point where you are driving in a criminal psychology. It's not even majoritarian now. It's a kind of a criminal psyche, mass psyche you are referring, where anything said by Muslim needs to be seen as suspicion with no reason. Anything done by dominant Hindu is all, there's also corollary to that. Like what happened with Bilkis Banu case in Gujarat. They said they are Sanskari Brahmins. So anything done, so there is an anthropologization, biologization of justice is happening. That anything that caste Hindus do, majority Hindus do, it cannot become under the purview of justice. So Mr. Kapil Mishra says something in Delhi riots, he can go scot-free because he's a Mishra. Somebody else says something, depending on his caste and gender and religion, can be castigated. So it is nothing to do with what you're saying and doing. The most worrying part is this, that in mass consumption, you're justifying that it has nothing to do with what you're saying or doing. It is with who you are. And this kind of righteous lawlessness, I think, is extremely dangerous, because there is no logic in this. There's nothing that we can sit and discuss. There's nothing one can sit and analyze. Has he done this right moment?
No, you said that there is no logic, and I'm also trying to wonder what logic BJP uses in its textbook. Now look at the multi-party delegation which is going. You have a mix of people like Nishikant Dubey and Uwaisi. The same Uwaisi who said lots of things about, the same Nishikant Dubey who said things about Uwaisi. And when they have to show themselves up at the international forums, then they will try and project a secular picture. But back home, in the middle of a conflict, BJP has no compunctions about doing all this. Arrest of people like this Ashoka University professor. So what is the kind of playbook? And I'll come to Pushpraj on this, and then I'll come back to you again. Pushpraj, that what is government trying to project? The government is trying to project a lot of things. Of course, an attack on intellectual freedom, attack on freedom of expression, sending out a message to the intellectuals, and also simultaneously playing out the Hindu-Muslim divide, which very well will work for them up in the run-up to the Bihar elections and elsewhere as well. So, I mean, is it like a multiple messages which BJP has in mind, and it has no idea whether it's going to backfire or it could really work for it?
Good evening, Neelu, to you, our panelists and our viewers. I must apologize for the ambient noise. I've just finished a public function, but it's still winding up, so there's some ambient noise. See, firstly, in praising the inclusion of Colonel Sophia Qureshi in the national response to Pakistan's attack, Professor Ali Khan Mahmudabad, as others have pointed out, just went a step further and asked for the everyday security of Indian Muslims to be guaranteed. Now, not only is that his constitutional right, it is also his sincere expectation from the Indian states. Now, every progressive Indian, apart from all of us here, but also your viewers, who are wedded to India's Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, or to quote from to ensure that the RSS is also this thing, the Vasudev Kutumbakam, hopes that no matter who we are or where we come from, each one of us is guaranteed liberty, equality, and justice. Now, demanding that from our government is neither anti-national nor anti-women. Now, secondly, Professor Mahmudabad's arrest is completely contrary to legal and constitutional standards, as you can see if you read Shreya Singhal versus Union of India or other cases. Now, frankly speaking, his arrest is state-sanctioned discriminations against free speech. Now, if the government of Haryana or the Haryana Women's Commission was so concerned about women's rights, they ought to have focused on the state sex ratio, which is under 700 and almost 481 villages. They could have been cognizant of the plight of Haryana's women wrestlers who were harassed by, again, those in power. They also ought to have focused on innumerable crimes against women in Haryana. Yet, the Haryana Women's Commission is not just quiet on those issues, but is farcically picking up an issue. In fact, it's fabricating an issue simply to curry favor with the party from where his head belongs to. In fact, Neeluji, you said something very interesting. The Haryana Women's Commission, her allusion to Mahmudabad's ancestors funding the Muslim League. Now, if she is so troubled by that, I don't understand why Mrs. Bhatia does not attack the BJP or the RSS and the Jansang, who got for the bulk of their initial years funding from Nusli Wadia, who's Jinnah's grandson. Now, isn't that equally objectionable for Mrs. Bhatia? Similarly, why aren't they attacking against their own MP minister, who is a vilified Colonel Sophia? Today, the bitter reality, as Professor Apurvan was saying, there is one repressive law for us ordinary Indians, and there is another weaker, non-existent law for those who belong to the BJP. As you have rightly pointed out, thirdly, Professor Mahbubah's arrest is a larger conspiracy to circumscribe freedom of speech and criticism by a party that is allergic to any efforts to be held accountable. Now, on one hand, PM Modi says, please criticize me and my government, but his principal motto is na bolunga, na bolne dunga. In the first 4 months alone of 2025, there have been 329 incidents of free speech repression by the government. Now, whether it's satirists like Neha Singh Rathore or Dr. Medusa or Ranting Gola or Kulal Kamra, or media channels like 4 PM and Wire, or films like Empuran and Pulle, or countless journalists, the BJP government has always made it a point to suppress criticism or any difference of opinion. I mean, in fact, the BJP specializes in this kind of hateful intolerance, whether it was their trolling of the grieving widow of that martyr naval officer, or of Colonel Sophia Qureshi, or of our foreign secretaries. BJP's first and last response is to spew venom at our fellow Indians. In fact, BJP is actually the true anti-nationals. If you see that, if you consider Bharat Mata as our Indians, fellow Indians. I'm not going to talk about how his arrest represents a larger attack on academia, but I want to mirror what Professor Mridula Mukherjee said. It is really unfortunate that Ashoka from the professor's remarks. How can Ashoka claim to be a liberal bastion when it throws its own under the bus merely because they're mildly critical of the government? I mean, instead of objectivity, what they are encouraging is abject sycophancy. And what Professor Apurvan said again, Professor Mahmudabad's, he carries enviable social capital. He's from royalty. He's a member, a senior advisor of the Samajwadi Party. He teaches at Ashoka, which is one of the biggest universities in India. He's well connected to many in the higher rungs of polity and thought. Despite this, he has been arrested simply because he's from a certain faith and ideological leaning. Now, this kind of arbitrary ham-handedness only strengthens external propaganda, notably Pakistan's, that India is hyperbolic and anti-minorities. And lastly, Niluji, I'm glad, just one last thing, then I'll stop here. I'm glad that 1,200 progressive have publicly signed a letter condemning Professor Mahmudabad's arrest. Very good. But we need to genuinely ask ourselves whether this is even effective. It is undoubtedly cathartic for us. It is a show of solidarity with Professor Mahmudabad, in that it does something for him to give him that moral backing. But does it really force the BJP government to course correct? Does it make any change in his situation or the lives of those countless others being suppressed by the government?
Right. Absolutely. You're right that it doesn't make signing petitions actually is not working. Maybe we are expressing our solidarity, but it doesn't work in the favor of the nation. And Pramidlaji, I'll come to you now.
Sorry, Niluji, yes. I don't want to end this in a bitter note. I'm not reducing the value of expressing solidarity and showing that there is a community of progressives. I'm not denying that. What I'm trying to say, limited point here, is that this liberal incrementalism, this petition politics like in the moderate phase of the freedom struggle, it needs to stop. If you really want to confront injustice, you need to adopt civil disobedience in a targeted, strategic manner. Satyagraha. We don't have to wait for the right incident or the right cause, but we need to be stopped being so calcified in time. That's my limited point here.
Absolutely. I think I agree a lot with what you're saying. But Mridulaji, I'm just wondering that every day Prime Minister Modi and the entire BJP says that we are a strong nation. 56 inches of Prime Minister Modi's chest is doing all what the India has not seen in the last 70 years. Is the time not ripe for people like you, for people like us, to start saying that if we are a strong nation, why are we scared of one tweet? Why are we scared of an opinion? Why are we scared of one FB post? Should we not start saying this strongly? Is this what a strong nation exemplifies?
Well, I think, Neelu, It's not that people haven't been saying it. One doesn't want to talk about oneself, but there are so many others on this panel. Outside, people have been saying this. And in fact, I think it's been quite exemplary, the extent to which people have been speaking up. And in fact, we have very good work which actually documents the kind of discrimination and repression that intellectuals and academics, writers have been facing. And there are groups who have spent a lot of time and energy, all of us in our own ways, wherever we get a chance to speak, to do. Now, what Pushpraj is saying, that we need to take a next step. To that, I would say, Pushpraj, when you take political steps like satyagraha, etc., civil disobedience, you need a lead from political parties. Intellectuals by themselves have never been able to do that kind of politics. The kind of politics we can do as intellectuals is precisely, we can write petitions, we can write in the press, we can shout horse on YouTube channels. Anybody and everybody who asks us or calls us, we can speak up. But this is where I would say there are all these people who are going as parts of delegations to tell the world how wonderful a country we are and how horrible a country our neighbor is, right? That's what they're all supposed to do. Could they not even ask a question publicly and say, you expect us to go and we are going? All right? But what are we going to say? The first question we are going to be asked is that how is it that your professor is being treated like this? You are arresting people, and this is public. And mind you, this is going to be all over. It's already all over the press in the world. This is something in another 1 or 2 days, I predict New York Times or somebody will come out with an article, Guardian will say something. So it's not like when people go, they're not going to be asked questions. And it's not just a question of questions. Are we really so frog in the well that we really believe that it's a question of our going and telling people and they will believe our story? You think Pakistan's not telling their story? In fact, many people are now saying that so far, the Pakistan story, unfortunately for us, I'm not happy about it, has been bought much more by the world than our story. I've been reading reports on that. I've been hearing interviews with people which say that they have been able to tell their side of the story much better, which they usually have been, by the way, over the last 70 years. They're very good diplomacy. They're very good at lobbying, And in this case, if you read or, hear some of the commentaries that have been going on, they have been making a point of this, how we are treating our minorities. We can't present a false face to the world. It's not going to wash. If we want the world to believe our story, we have to improve our story. That story has to have truth in it. You can't peddle untruths or half-truths to the world because they are not fools. You think that the world, doesn't know what's going on in India. So I think from every point of view, the government has been behaving in apparently contradictory ways. On the one hand, you say we must be all together. Unity, every community, everyone, must be united and all that. But at the same time, that's rhetoric on one hand. If that is true, why don't you condemn when there are attacks on the Kashmiri students? Why don't you come up? Why doesn't the top leadership come out and make statements against? Why don't they stop the Haryana police from doing what they did to Mahmudabad? Because it's going to get them very bad press. So I think this is, so I would say, I started out by saying that I think, and I'm very happy. In fact, I particularly like the statement that has been put out by Mallikarjun Kharge. Yes. As usual, I find he's very clear-cut, very sharp, very bold in what he says, But this needs to be taken further. We also, if we are not to stop at petitioning, the political parties have to stop stopping at tweeting. So give us a lead. We are there. Even when intellectuals fought during the freedom struggle, they fought as part of the freedom struggle, right? There's a broader movement that has to be there. Apurvanand and I and Ajay have limited resources. We can only blab, blab, blab and go from here to there and everywhere. But beyond that, what do we do? Can I organize a demonstration at Jantar Mantar? No, even for that, even groups could do it earlier. You don't get permission. Even 50 people are not allowed to collect in Jantar Mantar now. Well, what are we supposed to do? So I think it's high time that political parties took the lead. We'd be more than happy to respond.
Absolutely, you're right. But how does one ensure, until unless the political parties don't support, how does one ensure that the next Mahmudabad incident doesn't happen? Professor Apurvan, and I'll come to you because you have a police which doesn't even read the post, but they are quick and prompt to lodge an FIR. You have people you have institutional bodies like State Women's Commission. They would not even read the post. They don't even know whether the matter is under their jurisdiction, but they want to be more loyal than the king. And to gain brownie points, they will come forward and make statements to please the powers that be. So how does one ensure you have a framework which is helping, supplementing the ruling party in every way? How do we ensure that a next Mahmudabad incident doesn't happen like this? Yes, sir.
The only thing that can ensure it is removal of this regime. There is no other way. First. And second, we need to understand the difficult context. And what is the context? Context is that majority of Indians don't feel that what is being done is wrong, because they think that those who are being punished are really anti-nationals, and them being Muslim goes against them. So when we say that we need to oppose, and how do we oppose a repressive state? The repressive nature of the state has to be felt equally by all sections of the society. But what we have seen in last 11 years, that this is not the case. Hindus don't feel that this is a repressive state. They think that, well, there may be mistakes here and there, but this is not a repressive state for Hindus. Repression is felt mostly by Muslims and Christians, and that is not shared by Hindus. So you can see uprising by people against authoritarian regimes, but that authoritarianism has to be felt or experienced equally by all sections of society. When you don't share the pain and the sense of injustice which Muslims feel, how can you rise against that regime? Because you think that regime is acting on your behalf. And this is very clear. It's plain fact. And we should accept it, that this is what has happened. And that is why we find it so difficult to build a public discourse, because media is against us. And why is media against us? Not because the government is putting pressure on the media. It's being done voluntarily by the media. Media is ideologically aligned with the regime. Second, and a more dangerous development that has happened in last 11 years is growing closeness between bureaucracy, police, and the regime, and ideology. And this growing ideological alignment of bureaucracy and police with the regime, that we have seen, because you have read reports about how a district magistrate takes a decision to demolish the house of a Muslim man who has married a Hindu woman, even when the High Court has protected the couple. The DM not only demolishes the house, but announces it proudly on his Twitter handle that it was it does. And he does it voluntarily without any order from the top. And he announces it. And now we have numerous, because I don't think that when a municipal commissioner orders a bulldozer to bulldoze a house of a Muslim, he does it only because there are orders from the top. He agrees with it, and he does it voluntarily, and he does it proactively. You remember the demolition of the house of where parents of that child, of that teenager lived, who had unfortunately stabbed a Hindu boy in Udaipur. Okay, and the DM got it demolished. And what was the irony? Irony was that this house was not owned by the parents. They lived there as tenants. And there were other four families. But why did DM do it? He said that I did it to appease the crowd. Now, there are growing incidents like this. And this is a very serious development, especially in the northern part of India, especially in those states which are called Hindi-speaking states. And this has made the task of opposition very difficult and of petitioners like us very difficult. Because earlier, you used to go to a DM, and if a professor from JNU would go, the police officer of the nearby police station would stand up and receive her or him with respect. But now the police officer knows that eminence doesn't matter. That has been destroyed in last 11 years. That is a serious development that has happened in the democracy of India. And that has made the task of opposition from political parties and from civil society members very, very difficult. Because if you have portrayed intellectuals and universities as enemies of the people, and there is a vast section of society which does believe that there are enemies of the people and they should be lynched. And remember in 2016, when JNU was attacked, JNU, the students of JNU and teachers of JNU would tell you that when they traveled in metro or took auto, they were beaten up. Students were beaten up. They were threatened with violence by autowalas, by co-travelers. So this is what has been done, and it's a very serious situation, and I don't know how are we going to come out of it. And it needs first a very serious realization and accurate description of the situation, which we don't do. We are still living a lie. We should get out of it. And first accept what the reality is, and then we can find a solution for that. That is what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, Mahmudabad would be repeated. It has been repeated. Why do people not find the incarceration, 5-year incarceration of Omar Khalid wrong, Sharjil Imam wrong, or the people who are there in jail for Bhima Koregaon wrong? Why is that people don't think that it's outrageous?
True.
Something has been done to people, and this first we need to realize it, accept it, and as you said, Mridulaji said, that opposition parties need to show courage, honesty. Why are you rushing to support the government? Why are you rushing to be part of this delegation? Why don't you insist that, well, we will go as part of the delegation, but first you convene parliament?
Exactly.
First you clear our confusion. There are so many narratives. First we need to know the truth. Otherwise, what are we going to tell the world? Why can't the opposition take a stand? Trinamool Congress, I learned today that Trinamool Congress said that it won't agree to the government deciding who Trinamool Congress. Why cannot Congress do it? Why does a member of Congress party feel so elated that contrary to his party's decision, he has been chosen to represent the nation? And he says that first thing is flag, first thing is nation. For heaven's sake, who in this country doesn't treat the flag as his or her own? but you are defying your party, and you are giving a clean chit to the government. This is not how parliamentary politics is done. And I think opposition parties have failed, and they are so diffident before this nationalist rhetoric that they think that if they don't join the bandwagon, they would lose the trust of the people. That is wrong. You need to take an honest stand and stick to it. That would carry conviction with the people. That you are not doing.
Absolutely, I agree. But
I'm
coming
sorry.
back to no. That's fine, because that is also another important aspect, and I'm going to be discussing that as well. This multi-party delegation, is it a sham, or is it just to divert the attention of the questions which are being asked over the ceasefire, over so many things about how many losses have we suffered? There are no answers on that, but we'll do a separate program on that. Coming back to the Mahmudabad question, now the matter is in the Supreme Court. And Ajay, what do you feel? Is the matter going to linger on, or we have some hope from the Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gavai? Because he said, if you remember on the first day, and he addressed a crowd where he said that I'm a follower of Ambedkar, I go by the Constitution. So that is the yardstick which he's going to take. Then we do have some hope for Mahmudabad. Yes, Ajay.
Definitely, Neelu. I think the very fact that the Supreme Court accepted this petition so fast is a good sign. I think in all probability they'll give him bail. I think 20 or 21st is the date they have given. So that on that front. But I want to add a little bit on what Apurvan said. That the real crisis really is that, except liberals like us who sit and talk in media, there is no large opposition that is coming from the ground. And this is, one is a nationalist rhetoric, the other is Hindu identity. But there's also another deeper reason that we need to point out, is that this Modi regime has been successful, and this is happening globally, that all secular, progressive, liberal, constitutional values, they have successfully depicted them as the elite way of life. And that's the real crisis in democracy that we are facing, that these are represented by elites. These are the tools that serve the interests of the elites. I think partly that came, in what Pushparaj said, that he's not Pushparaj targeted Mahmudabad target in spite of having social capital. He's targeted precisely because he comes from royalty and has social capital. And there is that mass anger against elites, and that's the success of political democracy. Large part of that success should go to Congress party. That centrist social democratic parties have been able to galvanize that anger, but they're not able to capitalize on what is coming out of it. And that anger, I think, is today successfully captured by Modi regime. You should, Neelu, watch this movie, September of Siraj, on Iranian Revolution, 1979, though it was a theocratic revolution. But the movie very clearly shows how the theocratic revolution was a mass uprising against elite way of life. That the theocrats are able to combine anti-elitism with mass way of life. I think Modi regime success story is precisely this, that when they target somebody like Mahmudabad, target secularism, target freedom of expression, we have not been able to convince in 50 years of our constitutional democracy that this is a vision that is inclusive and necessary for every mass. Because democracy, unfortunately, has not reached majority of people. Rule of law has not reached. Therefore, for Dalits in village, collapse of rule of law or collapse of constitution does not really matter, because they've never had the benefits of those tools, and that got restricted only to certain privileged sections. I think that is the real crux, and we need to devise a kind of a strategy as to how do you recombine and reclaim that anti-elitist space that Modi has kind of seized from us. That constitutional language that Rahul Gandhi is using, caste census, is one good step. But does it have the wherewithal to take on this anti-elite language of Mr. Modi? Because these tools of secularism, these tools that we often sit here and talk about in terms of freedom of expression, common people see them as those of the privileged, those who are socially indifferent to their concerns. How do we kind of wedge open that space, I think, is the heart of the question in cases like Mr. Mahmudabad.
Absolutely. So I'll end with the concluding remarks of Pushpraj. If you're connected, what would you really say to this whole arrest which has happened and the larger takeaways from this particular incident? I think Mridula ma'am also wants to say something. Yes, Mridula ma'am, I'll come to you and then I'll come to Pushpraj. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that while I agree with Apurvan and about the dismal situation we are in as far as the hold of communal ideology over large sections of people, I still have a slightly different perspective in that one. And though he corrected himself and said largely North India, there are very large parts of the country where this is not true. And so I think we need to qualify the statement when we make it. We should not only look at Hindi speaking North India to make our generalizations. Why? Because they can be built up as sites of resistance. I think our federalism has come in quite useful. Look at the way Stalin has been resisting. In her own time, Mamta has resisted. And even in different ways, Karnataka resists, Kerala resists, you reject the national education policy, you question NEET, you do so many things, where there is. The other thing I would say is, Apurvananji, that, I agree that, the situation is bad, but I still feel that there are enough reserves of the traditional ideology that which the freedom struggle based itself on, and which did permeate large sections of our people. And there I would even make a little caveat, and when Ajay, to you may not agree, but when you say how secularism and all is presented in an elite discourse, it's seen as an elite thing. How come people didn't react to Gandhi's secularism like that? It did make sense to them. Yes, he used a different language, but it was secularism all the same. So anyway, that was just a caveat. So, and I would say, Apurvanan, that the failure really is of not even trying to provide leadership to those, and then you build and create your larger community of those who agree with you. After all, it's a battle. So, and we have seen that whenever a serious effort and a sincere effort has been made, people have responded. Who thought Bharat Jodo Yatra would get the response that it did? In the first week, 10 days, it looked very dicey, but look at the way it picked up. See how people did respond to Rahul Gandhi when he went in the election campaign with the constitution in his hand. It made a dent even on the number of seats that the BJP got. Then we are the ones who then, go into recession, take a break. I mean, there has to, if we were to build and continue to build and continue to be, as you said, sincere and vigorous in our opposition with so many parties and all that, I mean, I don't see the situation as one where, it's darkness all around. I believe that there is enough scope for a good fight back.
Yeah.
That's my gut feeling.
Give me half a minute.
Yes.
Yes.
Mridula ji, I wish all your words were true, and I also hope that we use our reserves, and I don't disagree that we have reserves like that, but we need to first, as I said, that accept that much has changed. And if we should not be so hopeful about the South, because, well, yes, Karnataka is in, Congress is ruling Karnataka, but Karnataka is under the influence of Hindutva ideology. Large parts of Karnataka, we can't ignore that. And even Tamil Nadu, look very closely to what is happening on the ground in Tamil Nadu. And this is not a matter we can be complacent with. What I was trying to say was a very limited point, that the mass psychology of Hindus has undergone a change, and this we cannot ignore. And first we should accept it, and then we can start working on that. Otherwise, we'll live in an illusion. And second, you talked about Bharat Jodo Yatra, and post that I applaud what Bharat Jodo Yatra achieved. But even after that, it has been so difficult for opposition leaders, even Congress leaders, to utter the word secularism and Muslim. These are two words which are not uttered by our opposition leaders. And they are so afraid and so scared of backlash from Hindus that they don't take, when they are asked that, well, in your country, Muslims are being attacked, the leader says, well, we are with all persecuted communities. This is not the answer. You have to say that, yes, Muslims are particularly under attack, and we take that into notice, and we'll do something about that. But you ignore it.
True.
You ignore it and you say we are with all persecuted communities. That is not an honest answer. That is
There
all.
have been some encouraging signs on that recently. Ahmedabad Congress meeting Rahul Gandhi, the language. And Khadge ji, I particularly think, is very direct on this.
Very sharp with his
He is
retorts.
very
also.
sharp in his and clear cut in his statements. At least that's the feeling I get. I mean, I may be wrong.
All right.
but-
So I think
Good
I'll come
sign.
for the closing remarks to Pushpraj. What would you really say about this particular incident and the larger takeaways from this incident which has happened? Yes, Pushpraj.
Thanks, Neeluji. I think whatever had to be said about Professor Mahmudabad, all of our esteemed, better informed panelists have already said, so I don't want to belabor the point there. But what Professor Mukherjee and Professor Apurvan have said is sort of the central conundrum that people like us face. Both Professor Apurvan and Neelu Mukherjee are both right in a sense. The Hindu mind has been communalized, and I come from a place in Western Maharashtra, Kolhapur. Western Maharashtra is the birthplace of Phule, Ambedkar, Gokhale, the left, the CPI, in fact, the Congress party also, and still there have been multiple riots in our Maharashtra. Some 47 localized riots happened. I genuinely feel that progressive parties, primarily the Congress party, need to walk the talk. I mean, if Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge is very direct, is very ideological, as is LOP leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi. But there is a huge disconnect between what they say and what the grassroots state level leaders are doing. And this is very discouraging for people like us who have given up prime posts and ways of advancement to basically fight for the idea of India. We want to stand on principle and say that here we stand for secularism, for Muslims, for Indians. Do your worst. And I am genuinely convinced, and this is where I slightly disagree with Professor Apurvan, and although he did correct himself in the end, I think there are tremendous reserve. There are a lot of conscientious Indians, even today, who are willing and waiting and wanting to come out in defense of the constitutional idea of India. What we are lacking is political leadership. There I completely agree with Professor Mukherjee. And I'm sorry, if the political parties are unwilling to stand on principle, as you rightly pointed out, people are sort of lauding themselves for being selected despite their party stands. There should be a mass culling. Let those people, as Rahul Gandhi says, Daro mat, let these people go. Let us stand on principle. I mean, in any case, we have not really performed well after the Lok Sabha elections in Maharashtra, in Haryana, in the ensuing elections in Bihar. It's not like we are going to distinguish ourselves by pussyfooting or being shy about taking on publicly what the BJP stands for. Until and unless we are able to confront them ideologically, we cannot convince Indians that we stand on principle or that we stand for something. No one is going to vote for a party that wants to be a pale shadow of the right. You can't out Hindutva the BJP. You can't punch them from the right. That is not going to happen. This entire thing on caste census also, I'm sorry, there are people within the parties who are okay with just adding one extra column, enumerating the OBCs, but you don't want a yardstick, you don't want a comprehensive caste census which maps upper caste as well as the socio-economic status of upper caste as well as this thing. You need to stand on principle, and I'm sorry, this is not happening. So in a sense, when we talk about when we rail against liberal incrementalism, it is because the only force that is fighting today is the liberal intellectuals like Professor Mukherjee, Professor Apurvan. It is them who we have to hope are able to impress the parties to change track. We are stuck in the moderate phase until and unless we adopt Gandhian techniques, until and unless we are able to, because I genuinely feel the answer is to go to the people. Bharat Jodo Yatra succeeded because we went to the people. The day you go to the people, the answers come from the people. We cannot do this, AC room politics. Oh, let us sit together and do some fancy strategies and do Twitter politics. It doesn't work. It does not work. It has not worked for the last 11 years. It will not work for the next 4 years. If you want to win politics, if you want to convince India, if you want to reclaim the center, when I say the center, I don't mean just the union government, but if you want to reclaim the normative center, you have to go back to the people. And I'm sorry, right now, some of the people in progressive parties are not doing that, and that is the crisis of progressive politics today. Until we address and redress that comprehensively, this kind of stuff will keep happening every day.
I'm glad that we could discuss the larger points also in the name of the arrest of Professor Mahmudabad. We all hope and pray that he comes out like what he was, and he gets bail, and his case is heard. And people do know what Mahmudabad has been all about. It's just not about a Facebook post, but it's a larger message, the chilling message which the government is wanting to send out. And that's what we need to speak up. And believe me, when till yesterday, there were people who were telling me, as a journalist, I'm just sharing that bit on the parting note, that there were people telling me that stop doing programs on Operation Sindoor. You should be very careful before you open your mouth on Operation Sindoor. I just feel that, you should go by what your heart says. That's when you will need to just speak up. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Let's hope and pray for Mahmudabad, and cheer up for people like Mridula Mukherjee, Apurvan, Pushpraj. Thank you so much for joining this evening. Thank you.